Welcome back, everyone. We continue with our series of virtual tours throughout the Willamette Valley. This week, as I mentioned before, we're focused in the Eola-Amity Hills. Crawford Beck Vineyard is one of several we work with and have for almost 15 years now. Let's go to the map. You can always find this map on our website if it's hard to see what Annie is bringing up here. These are the sources of wine grapes that we have leased, and we farm unique blocks of Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Auxerrois, and other varietals all across the North Willamette Valley. So from Portland, Oregon to the southernmost vineyard, Logsdon Ridge, is about a 90-minute drive. This week, as I said, we're focused in the Eola-Amity Hills. 2 days ago, we talked with Tim Ramey at Zenith Vineyard, right in the middle, the jaws, as he called it. And today, we're going to the northernmost reaches of the Eola-Amity Hills. Crawford Beck Vineyard is right at the peak. There's a road that goes between the town of Amity to the west and Hopewell to the east. And Crawford Beck is right up on the saddle, crossing over those northernmost reaches. So we asked David and Jean Beck, a couple of retired PhDs who've been farming this site for a decade and a half, to tell us about their terroir, their climate, and their cultural approach. Let's hear from David now.
Greetings, Annie and Scott, and all the folks who love really fine Pinot and know the Raptor Ridge brand well. We are at the Crawford Beck Vineyard, Block 1, right in front of us. It's early in the season, so there's not much to see in terms of growth, but we want to tell you a little bit about a very fine block of Pinot growing in soil that comes from volcanic material laid down about 15 million years ago. Here's a rock. That's what the volcanic material looked like after it hardened. And as that rock wears away, here's what the dirt looks like. It's very iron-rich, clay soil with a very strong water-holding capacity, which allows us to do something that's extremely important in terms of the quality of the grapes, and that is dry farm. We do not irrigate the grapes. The roots go deep into the soil looking for minerals and nutrients that bring up the quality of the soil that they're growing in. The concept of the soil is part of a bigger concept called terroir. A second component is climate. And climate is not the same as weather, but climate is that this site is a cool site. The general climate around here is relatively cool. On a hot summer day, we're probably cooler than most other places in the Willamette Valley. And that means that the grapes tend to retain their flavors and their acidity and their brightness and crispness. And under the tutelage of Annie and Scott in the winery, make a very delicate, beautiful, subtle, feminine wine. Wines that go well with things like veal and salmon and tuna. And one of the other things that we thoroughly enjoy working with Annie and Scott about is that I'm a scientist in my previous life, so is my wife, who is holding the camera at the moment. And we like to do lots of experiments in the vineyard to learn better how to grow grapes. And Scott and Annie like to do that too. And so I'm going to tell you about one of the experiments that we're doing in Block 1 right now, and we're going to go take a look right this moment. One of the standard ways of pruning vines, and these vines have just been pruned, one of the standard ways is called cane pruning, in which we lay down a cane on the wire, and from that, in the summer, will grow up shoots on which the grapes will grow. That's one of the standard ways of pruning grapes in this area. But there's a second way of doing it that has some different that imparts some different characteristics to the grapes and also to the farming of those grapes, and that's called cane pruning. So unlike these vines that have canes laid down, these vines on this side have a big old cane here with little spurs coming off of it, and hence it's called spur pruning. And on here there are little buds that will soon develop shoots that will grow up, and on those shoots will be grape clusters. I said earlier that it's really nice to be able to have a cool site here, and one of the things that means is that when we have a year that requires extra hang time, that is extra time for the grapes to ripen, because the site is cooler, Scott and Annie can leave the grapes hanging a little bit longer to allow them to develop the flavors that the wines need to express during the course of the fermentation. So this site has some experimental properties, experimental things going on. It has some very interesting terroir things going on. And this really produces a wine that has its unique characteristics expressing the qualities of this site.
Thank you, David. It's always good to check in with Gene and David Beck. One of the things that our winemaker, Shannon, who's joined us in 2017, told me was when she first came into the cellar, tasting through barrels and tanks, she didn't know which vineyards they were, but one of them stuck out to her. So Shannon, why don't you tell us about your experiences in general with Crawford Vineyard, and a little bit more on your thoughts of this experiment we're doing, cane prune versus cordon prune.
Yeah, like Scott was just saying, I was sampling the tanks and getting everything ready for bottling, and it's actually the wine that's going to be included in this package, the 2016 Crawford Beck. I just remember being really impressed with the wine, and I didn't even look at the tag before sampling it, so I didn't know what was what. But one of the things I definitely have found, I think it's really interesting that we have this spur versus cane pruning experiment. Since most of my career, I worked with spur prune vines, which one of the things you learn about spur pruning is it's a lot faster to get it done in the vineyard. So I remember first watching cane pruning being done here in the Willamette Valley and going, wow, why is it taking them so long to do this? The thing that we notice about the fruit coming in, we actually harvest all of it at the exact same time, but there's a Brix worth of difference. And so Brix is the reading that we use to measure how much sugar is in the grapes. And at the end, when we actually get them completely fermented, this could mean as much as 1% in alcohol difference. We also notice there's some difference between the flavor compounds coming from them. There's like a little bit more of the sweetness from the fruit coming through on the cane pruned, which has the higher Brix of the two, versus the spur pruned, which is a little bit more savory, has a little bit more forest floor-like characteristics. We have the ability, because we get a pretty good size of fruit from this vineyard, to do a couple whole cluster experiments as well as destemmed. And so it's been a really fun vineyard to work with. And one thing also that wasn't mentioned is that the spur pruned, contrary to what we thought, actually has smaller clusters and smaller berries. And so that probably contributes to the really dark colored fruit that comes in from them and that we're able to work with in our blends.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shannon. As you can see, we have amazing talents here in our vineyards and in our cellar with our winemaker, Shannon Gustafson. As owners, it gives us great pride to have such wonderful partners to work with, both in the vineyard and in the cellar. Thank you so much, Shannon. Just a reminder, we've got our Eola Amity virtual AVA tour featured on the website this week and probably rolling for another few days. It's an incredible value of $99 for 3 bottles to your door, and that can either come through FedEx, or we are able still to do curbside pickup by appointment at the winery if you're local. So we'd love to see you briefly and very safely in your car, where we can place the wines for you from gloved hands to you. Or we are happy to ship to you, and many people have already been taking advantage of this incredible offer. So thanks so much. Be safe out there, and we will get through this together. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.